She woke up and she goes, I like to start my day. I do a little bit of yoga in my bed. I'll open my journal and I'll write down my thoughts for the day, my plans for the day, and what I'm grateful for. So then I like to get up and I'll have a smoothie and a green juice. And then I'll go for a walk. And I'm like, you don't have kids.
No way.
Because my day starts with my kid yelling because he's woken up. He's
Yeah.
shat his pants and it's leaked out his nappy. It's
Yep.
coming out his foot. I'm on dad duty that morning in the sense of just his sleeping day. It's just my morning routines have taken a whack. If you look at the start of my day, at the moment you go, oh, okay, this guy's not necessarily that interested in like health and wellness because all he's doing is just cleaning shit up from like I don't even know how that pot is still out. It's just there's so many factors that it's interesting that you say that happiness does decline for a certain extent because you feel bad saying that because obviously it's the greatest gift I've ever had. I would never ever substitute I say my kids now because I got one coming in a week and a half. But I would never substitute that for anything. And yet, in saying all of that, it's probably one of the biggest challenges that I've personally faced. And I think it's because I'm trying to be as hands-on as possible as well. I really respect that about you. Like I want to be a real hands-on dad and be sort of a really positive guiding figure in his life, and that requires time. But man, it's interesting that it's people give you like a soft warning. They're like, like I said to my dad's mate the other day, I just met him, and he goes, oh, what's going on in your world, mate? I said, we're about to have our second kid, and he goes, oh, mate, commiserations. And it sounded horrible, but I'm like, this guy's got kids. He gets that I'm about to go through the fire. So I appreciate you talking openly about this, man. But have you got? I know you just said that it's not necessarily something that you're looking for strategies to navigate your way through. You just need that confidence or that comfort in the fact that it is hard. But how do you deal with it? I appreciate you being so open about the fact it's not the sunshine and rainbows.
I don't know if my wife would say that I do. My wife and I got a really awesome relationship. I think some things people need to know is that you need to know it's hard because your relationship gets so strained.
Yes.
That you need to know that that's okay. And I sort of started. We always say to our friends when they say they read an article, we go, did you read the article or just the headline? And so I saw the headline and maybe the first couple lines. This one, and it was talking about how when you're stressed, when you're truly stressed, that you can only see the negative in your partner. And it's true. We definitely had that for a long time. And it was really, really hard. And I think there were times before we got married where we just started our relationship. We would have a fight and it could last for days, the tension, and we've got it down so it lasts for 20 minutes, an hour, worst case overnight, worst case. And a lot of that is just really presuming the best intention of the other person, trying to work out like, how do I find a way to have this resolved quickly and to be loving and realize it probably is my fault somehow. I just can't see it. But even though we're really strained sometimes, we're doing our best not to blame the other person, even though there's times when Brian wants to put my head through a window, like, and vice versa, where you just go, I love you, but why do I want to kill you? I just think it's really important for couples to know that kind of strain is part of the process because you're just so tired. And the moment you think you get to rest, some baby screams or they throw up all over you, or there's something else to do. It's the bin truck pulls up and you're like, you're kidding me. So part of it is just really knowing that you're going to be sad. I think that's really important. I haven't managed, they say get time for yourself and all that. I haven't managed to do that. If I get time for myself, that means that Broden's got 2 kids. So that doesn't seem like a win at all. Sleep's great, but you just don't really have that luxury of sleep, frankly.
So true.
I did have a friend say to me once, we had quite a few miscarriages before we had kids, and it was tough, and it was really tough. And he said, Dobbo, it's okay to buy happiness. And I was like, wow, yeah. Like, I think all my personal development was, I'm resilient and resourceful, and, I don't need a crutch of alcohol or shopping or whatever. But, Brian and I we didn't have kids then, so we had time, but we just went shopping, and we probably just blew $1,000 on just for the sake of it. And so I have realized that sometimes you just realize that you're doing this to cope, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's a pattern. I think, I think there's a few things that I'm always doing for Brona, like, and I think for classic heterosexual relationship is important. Sometimes when you work all week, you get to the weekend and you think, oh, I'll mow the lawn, or I'll, some people play golf, or they go, I'm going to get some extra work done to get on top of things. Then the weekend doesn't look any different for your partner because now they've still got the kids. And that doesn't work. You have to allocate the weekend for the weekend. It has to be that, because otherwise your partner has no contrast and the whole ship sinks. I also think that if you say to your partner, you'll be home at 5, then you've got to be home at 5. You can't be 5:05. It really, really matters to your mentality for both parties. And the other thing is, I think you just got to resource things that are hard. So we had a little win. This is ridiculous, but it was such a cool win, and it continues to be. The kids just throw shit all over the floor when they're eating. Like, they launch it, and they're learning sensory stuff. So they want to, like, they're trying to, and they just drop it off the edge. And
dude, I wish my wife was listening to this right now, because our kid's doing the same thing, and I've never wanted to learn the triangle choke I hold so bad, but I feel like you're about to give more helpful advice.
There's 2 tips. The first thing is the child needs to know what to do with it instead. And so we just put a second bowl there, and they just fill up the second bowl. It was amazing.
Instead of throwing it on the floor?
Yeah, they just want to do something with it. So we just go, oh, yeah, put it over here. And the second bowl's, like, if they're in a high chair, the bowl could be on the table, or it could be still on the high chair somewhere else. But the idea that they're moving it and putting it somewhere is enough. So that was amazing. But the second thing, we just got a dustpan and brush that you use while you're standing up, a tall one for $12.99 from Kmart.
That's a good advice.
We were like, why did we not get this 2 years ago?
That's such good advice.
It's because getting it on the floor is such a pain in the ass. Just over it. And then if you leave it there too long, it just cakes up and it's solid and it's never coming off. So we are always trying to look at what resource do we need. And often I think that people think, we all go, oh no, I've got it covered. But it's really worth listening to other people think, well, what did you do? Like, and noticing what's the bane of your life? There's someone else got a solution here. So like, that's in a nutshell. There's probably some other things, but that's what comes to mind at first. But I am open about it. And when I said before that, that's the space I live in, I think it's really important people know I don't live in there. It's who I am, and I have lived there, but I haven't been at all. I've just been, and I don't feel like the positive guy. I feel like the guy that just vents and bitches about life at the moment. I don't feel positive or uplifting at all. But sometimes people like that, but I don't feel like it. And I've just been really concerned. Have I truly lost my joy or zest? And I haven't. Like, our kids slept through recently. They're just starting to sleep through again. And I'm like, I feel like a king. Like, oh my God, I got 6 hours, a couple of nights in a row. I feel like a king.
Dude, we caught up with one of my wife's good friend the other day. She's got a 12-year-old girl and an 8, I think he's like 7 or 8. And I remember her saying about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, she's like, oh, it's so nice that I'm starting to feel like myself again. And I was like, oh, what do you mean starting to feel like yourself again? She's like, dude, the first 4 or 5 years of your kid's life. And I think it was very similar to what you and I are talking about now, just that constant commitment that a kid requires in order to be alive. It can be so draining. She's like, I felt drained. I felt exhausted. I felt grumpy. I felt miserable. And to get them to an age where they're a little bit more, they still require attention, but they can go to the toilet by themselves. They can have a shower by themselves. They can get their breakfast organized. She goes, it's just a massive breath of fresh air. And even today, daycare day, as I mentioned, just for clarification, Jesse and I, we went down for a coffee at Ket Baker out here in Ocean Grove. And when we were sitting there, I said to her, I was like, I'm listening to a book at the moment where he's a Franciscan priest, and he's talking about just the different stages of a person's health development, and some signs that you might be in a little bit of a downer kind of a phase. He spoke about how you notice in the downer phase, a lot of the time your mind feels as though it's closed up, your heart feels as though it's closed up, your skin feels a little bit more leather. And I've noticed, even in the way that I joke, I'm like, it's a bit more cynical and a bit more. Like Jessie said to me a while ago, she's like, you've always been so agreeable. It's amazing to see the last couple of years you just like sort of call out bullshit where you see it. And I'm like, I'm sort of glad, like I took it as a compliment. I'm glad that I'm a bit more like that. But also I know that some of that is just a frustration maybe with the period, like just to echo what you've already said. I definitely feel the same way in so many respects. And the thing I'm trying to navigate, and it sounds like you've sort of thought about this a bit as well, is I'm so put off by that grumpy old man, like that stereotype of a grumpy old man who's just become cynical with life, that I think I have to cut myself some slack sometimes, because I'll sit back and I'm like, crap, am I just becoming that, or am I in a really intense part of life? And it's not always just one or the other for me. I think sometimes I've got to be cautious that I'm not just leaning on cynicism. But the other side of it's true as well, which you acknowledge, which I appreciate, is the fact that we're just in an intense kind of a phase.
And with COVID too, we had a perfect storm. Our child was born right before the second lockdown or something. Mum and Dad got to see him right before we went into this full lockdown, and so we lost all our. We were in a fairly new area, so we didn't have a social network locally, and all the mothers groups that we could have been part of and similar all just got disbanded, and so you had no friends. And what I realized during all the lockdown periods is that what we missed the most is we didn't laugh. We stopped laughing. And so that's the fuel. So it's a particularly hard time, and I'm just worn out as a bloke. I keep getting asked to be things that I'm not. And like I'm asked to put things into Tupperware containers, and I hate that. And I'm asked to negotiate, although I don't negotiate. We don't negotiate with terrorists. So I do not negotiate with my daughter. But sometimes you're just begging her to get on the goddamn toilet, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm worn out, and I love the films. Daddy's Home, the Daddy's Home 1 and 2. If you haven't seen them, have you seen those?
Are they like from the 90s, maybe?
No.
I feel like I've heard the title, but
They're Will Ferrell, and the second
no.
one's a Christmas movie. They're absolutely must see. But he talks about dads just like we just take shit. That's what we do. We just and you're like, yeah, you do. You keep you take a beating because you're constantly being asked to be something you're not. And it's not that you don't want to be that, but it's not in our nature. Like I can go out in the garden and I can work all day in the rain. I can pick up a dead rat if I had to. I can dig out the sewer if I had to, and I'm fine. And I say to Brona, come outside and do this with me. And she's like, she tries, but she's like got 7 minutes in her. All right. But then I go inside and I'm doing the home stuff and I just can't do it. So but I try. And so I'm constantly being asked to be something I'm not. And I had two really unique experiences when we had the kids. I remember driving across the Westgate Bridge, coming home one night, and I was just tired and narky. And I had this aha moment where I suddenly had no more time for any friends that were pretending to be my friend. Where, some people you text them, they text you right back. And there's other people you text them and it's like, oh, sorry, I never got back to you. How was the event? And you're like,
Oh yeah, I'm guilty.
that's
I'm
bullshit,
guilty.
right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I need to improve that. I'm glad you said that, because all my friends listening to this would be like, Tyson, you can't not acknowledge that you. So
It's just
yeah.
it's a courtesy. And I think people just don't know how to give bad news, or they don't know what the answer is. So you got to solve that. And so anyway, I had this aha moment. I was like, I'm just not putting up anybody who's not my friend anymore. I was just too tired. I didn't have the energy. And then once I had the second child, I was driving, and I was like, you know what? Anybody any client that gives me any hassle, any grief, that is any way at all just not worth the effort, they're gone. Just was like it switched in me. And as a result, my income went through the roof because I also stopped doing things that that were low value. And I think that a lot of parents know that feeling where I just don't have time, so I have to get it done right now. And when you're young, you've got so much time that sometimes you don't get it done at all. But these were the result of fatigue. But then through COVID and other things like, all the wars overseas and similar, and I think there's some serious trouble coming globally. But you do understand how things work, and you start to see, oh, that's why my granddad was like that, because he'd seen life change so much, and he'd become tired and miserable and saw us going in an unhealthy direction. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. So it was interesting when I listened to Bert the other day and just hearing his gratitude for things. A lot of it really is what you're focusing on. It's what's captured your imagination. And when you're tired, you don't have the resilience to keep an idea out. So they're just things I'm navigating. Don't think I'm doing a very good job. I'm still married and I've still got 2 kids that like me, so I might be doing okay. But I just think it's important that we don't romanticize it. Like I got this book when Holly was born, it was about being a father and all these famous people talking, about being what a father means and all this kind of shit. And it was great. And I'm a little way in and I'm like, I'm not writing that book. I'm writing that I want to take a shit on my own. Like, that's what I'm writing about.
Seriously.
And
And I'll write the forward to it. I'll write the forward.
Do, right?
I agree with everything that Tommy just said.
I just want to put a shirt on and be confident that that's the shirt I'll leave the house in. Like cry. I just want to wake up in the morning and know that the kids have stayed in the nappy and they don't have to change the entire. I just want that.
Just want to eat avocado off my finger and know it's avocado.
Yeah. I just want to sit at dinner and have a meal with my daughter without her laying all over me and putting her feet on me. And I just want to not get hit in the balls every 2 days.
Seriously.
I cannot believe how many times I get hit in the balls. I'm so tired of it.